Welcome to Difference Makers, the podcast that explores people making a difference across planet Earth. I am your host, Joni Readout. On this episode of Difference Makers, I'm here with Scott Garvis. Scott has been a leader and innovator in high school athletic administration for more than 20 years. He has a record of excellence as athletic director, director of activities, and assistant principal, having led the athletics departments at 6 high schools or school districts in 3 states. Scott is the author of the book DNA of an AD, Athletic Director. His goal is to be a purpose and mission-driven servant leader that inspires students, coaches, and administrators to pursue excellence and positively influence the lives of others through educationally based activities. Thank you for being with us, Scott. We're excited to hear about your difference maker experiences.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here, Joni. Thank you.
Who are the people in your life that have been difference makers, and how have those people been difference makers in your life?
Oh gosh, that's a great question. I've had so many, but I'll go to my my football coach in high school. He made a tremendous impact on me. I will say that I probably came from a family that put fun back in dysfunctional. So I didn't always have probably the most stable home life. And my teachers, I had this choir teacher, Miss Midgarden. She was amazing. And I'm this little 7th grade, little short, chubby, little fat kid who sang soprano in the middle school choir. And I remember one time we were getting ready for a concert and I was just scared to death because I was the only boy singing in the, with the girls. And I went up to Mrs. Midgarden. I was like, Miss Midgarden, can I sing with the boys at the concert? And this probably a high, really squeaky voice. And she was a huge impact on me. But as I go back to my head football coach, I knew he loved and cared about me despite, playing football and all those things. And I ended up being a good football player. But he just cared about me. And he checked up on me, made sure I was going to school. I was not always so good at going to school. And probably got into trouble that I shouldn't have got into as a young kid. And he always made sure that I knew that I had more potential than I knew. And he brought me from, where I was to where I am now. And if it wasn't for him, wasn't for, teachers like Miss Midgarden, I don't know where I'd be, but I wouldn't be where I am now. And I gained my passion from the fact that they poured so much greatness into me. Hopefully I can be that for, a student athlete. I can be that for a coach. I can be that for a fellow athletic administrator, that I can give them this purpose of going out. And at the end of the day, I just want to help people. I want to help people be the best they can be. And so that probably gravitated me towards coaching and now being an athletic administrator and now going out and speaking. If you would have told my English teacher I was going to write a book, she would call you crazy.
That's part of the being an educator. So this is my 15th year, and it was part of my mission in doing the podcast. Is I just teaching is hard and it's challenging, but I think we do it because, and you can connect with this with your work coaching and being in athletic administration. It's the hard, challenging stuff is so worth it because of the impact we have.
Yes.
And we want to emulate that because other people have done that for us. Yes.
And I tell people all the time, like, what gives me energy, like everybody's like, God, you're like you're too much. But I would say that I get my energy comes from, going out and helping other people. Like I get excited about that. We just got back from the National Athletic Director Conference and I'm just trying, like, I just go, like Zach was there, Clark, and I get to see amazing people that are going out and doing, like you said, Joni, hard work. It's hard to be an educator right now. It's hard being an athletic director. It's hard being a teacher. And, anytime that you can draw that energy and that have that network of people that you can reach out to and be like, okay, I need some help today because I'm having a hard time finding my purpose today. because I want to, go off on some kid that's causing me issues, or I'm having some parent that's causing me problems. And there's so many different things that, that become obstacles for us in education right now. And if they could rely on other people like I do, like there's somebody like calling Zach, or, I've got other ADs that I'm, friends with, and I can be like, hey, I'm dealing with this difficult, issue today, and then they usually provide me with some sort of feedback. Then I'm like, okay, I can handle this. I can get through this, but we need those people. It's so important to have those people in your life that can help you through this crazy journey of education.
Yes. So true. So you've touched on a little bit with like getting jacked up about helping other people.
Yeah.
When you reflect and think about how have you been a difference maker in the lives of others?
Yeah. I mean, I can go back to so my very first job in high school. I coached college football for a number of years, and the first job in high school, I was athletic director, juvenile court liaison, head football coach, assistant basketball coach, janitor, Saturday school coordinator, uh, you know, everything that we do in the schools that we do. And I would tell you, as I reflect back on those days as a juvenile court liaison, at that time, like I'm working with, kids that are struggling with home life, family life, all these difficult things they're dealing with, which, are tough. It's tough. Those are tough things. And I'd always feel like I was beating my head against the wall. Like, I don't know if I can help these kids. And it was a few years ago now, but I had one of my students who was the kid that I checked in with every morning. Always felt like, I'm never going to get through this kid. And it was probably a year or two ago. He sent me a Facebook message and he said, Mr. Jarvis, thank you so much for, staying on me, getting after me about, trying to improve myself, trying to, straighten my path, as it were. And that, I'm all teared up.
I am too. I am too. It gives me goosebumps every time. I know.
And honestly, he's just like, you made a difference in my life. Sorry.
It's okay.
And,
It's okay. You're not the first one that this has happened to. And it's like taking a minute to think about like, whoa, like we truly do. And we talk about that in education all the time, but I think it's across the board, the impact that you have on people and teachers. We certainly can get those messages, years down the way, and we talk about that. But I think that goes for anybody. Like it's just helping people think about you truly can make a difference in the lives of people with every interaction.
Yeah. And even though those were probably a lot of small interactions, now he's got a great job, works with the railroad, and he goes, and he was never going to be like somebody that was going to probably go be a doctor or a lawyer, but he's got a great job. He probably makes a heck of a lot more money than I do.
Yeah.
This made me feel good. Like, oh, wow. Like I did make a difference in this kid's life, even though like I thought I never did. It was a good feeling to know, like, all right, so I continued to push him to be the best he could be, even when he didn't want to be at the time. So that there's so many times I think in education where we just be like, I'm not, making the impact I thought I would. And I tell people all the time, you might not know, like in this instance, 20 plus years, you might not ever know. So I always encourage people, make sure you tell people, that they've had an impact on you. Like when I go out and do, when I speak all across the country, I tell people, get your phone out right now and tell somebody, whether it was a coach, whether it was a youth coach, whether it was a teacher, and just let them know that the impact that you had on, because as teachers and we need to hear that, because there's so many tough days. Like those little text messages or those emails or those, those letters. I actually, in my drawer right here, I've got a manila envelope of letters, or I've printed off emails from kids, from parents, and I call it my crappy day folder. So whenever I'm having a tough day, I will read those letters, read those cards, read those emails, and it kind of refocuses me on why I do what I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
We all need a crappy day folder.
I apologize for my mental breakdown.
Oh, you're fine. Oh my gosh. It's I don't think that's my last one of my last interviews with Coach Lindsay Dial. She didn't expect to get emotional either. And she was like, oh my gosh, Joan, like thinking about the people in her life that have been difference makers for her. And I was like, it happens. Like it just yeah, it hits us, right? It's the stuff that I think life is all about.
Yes, definitely.
So when you think about attributes of difference makers, so the goal being that we inspire other people to look inside themselves at habits that they have and things that they're doing, and maybe things that you're doing or other people are doing, what are the attributes you see in people who are difference makers?
Oh gosh, there's so many. I would say like just I feel like difference makers are people who are out to make a difference, to give. They're selfless. They give maybe beyond what they can even give. I think that comes with some empathy and understanding. So for me, I always had like a soft spot in my heart for those at-risk kids that maybe didn't always get the good draw. So I was always like, really gravitated to those kids and wanted to see them succeed. I feel like they're like effective with their time and efficient with their time. I feel like they're adaptable. They can overcome obstacles that are in their way quickly, and that's sometimes not always easy to do. I feel like they're always collaborating. They're trying to find network. They're trying to find team. They're trying to bring people together. They're positive, not always positive, but positive as much as they possibly can be. But then we talk too about like having that team, so that when you need that pickup, you've got those people to help out. I feel like effective leaders are consistent in what they do. They're consistent with their people, so they don't have the roller coaster effect that, when I talk to people that are struggling with leaders, it's, I don't know what I'm going to get. And that's always difficult when you're leading people, when they come in and one time you bite their head off and one time you're like really nice and they're like, okay, what am I going to walk into today? And I feel like, and I talk about this in my book, I talk about just being strategic and having a plan, and how you build that plan based on your mission, your vision, your purpose, your core values, and how that drives and leads you to being a great leader. And then I think it's just, again, it's just that resilience when you face challenges. And in education, I feel like teachers, coaches, athletic administrators, they're facing challenges all the time. And we know that the most difficult job in any industry is dealing and working with people. I don't know if she's dealing, but working with people. It's like the one thing that you can never predict. And I think as teachers and coaches and ADs, sometimes we try to carry other people's loads, and that can get burdensome. So it's good. I would tell you, a good leader needs to be a good listener too, because people need to sometimes take that big, huge backpack off and lay it down on the table and just share, so that they can, feel better. And I think that as leaders, we need to be good listeners.
Yeah, that's a good list.
Yeah.
It's interesting, as I have interviewed people using these same 3 questions, the consistency that comes out between the attributes. And every time I say, Nobody ever mentions things that isn't possible for someone.
Yes.
Like the attributes of a difference maker are things that all of us can work on. And that list that you said are like things that I like, we have to keep ourselves in check of that, right? Like as a leader, I have to be like you talking about being consistent, right? And in my head, I'm instantly thinking, okay, based on the interactions I had yesterday, how was I consistent with my kids? How was I consistent with teachers that I coach? How was I consistent with, community members that I see? Like, are they getting the same Joni every time I approach them?
Right. And I mean, I always think about this, you know, are you consistent between your job and home? And that's really hard. So you're at school all day, you've been positive, you've had a really great day, and then you go home and you're just done and you have nothing left for your family. And so that was something that I was not good at. Like I would always come home and that was where I dumped my baggage off at. And it's not always fair to your family. So that's where that consistent, like when I think about that, it's being consistent, not only, at school, but at home too, which is really hard.
That's such a great point because even when I was thinking about it, I was thinking about in my job, right?
Yeah.
Then thinking about for the people that mean the most to us. And it's so funny you bring that up because we were just at a professional development and all the teachers around the room were talking about that. Like my tank's empty. Like I give it all during the day and then I go home to littles and I feel so guilty because I don't have anything left in the tank. So it's thinking about, how do you fill your bucket enough to still have some left at home?
Yeah.
That's such a great point.
I remember, this was a few years ago, my son graduated. And I remember telling him, I was like, hey, bud, I'm so sorry. I probably wasn't as present for you as I needed to be. And I always felt bad about that. And he goes, he said something and I'll never forget it. He's like, hey, Dad, those kids, he goes, I knew you're always there for me, but I knew those kids needed you at that time, and I was just like, oh, just like crushing, but I think our kids understand that. I remember telling my son, hey, would you ever want to get into education? And he said, absolutely not. He's like, everything that you do with it, he goes, I don't know that I could do that. I don't know how you handle getting screamed at. And how did you, he goes, I couldn't do that. So I don't know if I taught him a great lesson of not getting or here's the way not to do this.
It is funny to think about. There are like generations of families that'll all be teachers. Yes. And then it's like some educators, their kids are like, absolutely not. Right. And I think it's just people are different and our children are different in what they want to do. But that's pretty awesome that he could see that perspective, right? For kids that also needed you.
Yeah. So for that young, it was very telling to what he saw. So although it, was kind of crushed my heart a little bit, but I was admired that he had that perspective already at such a young age.
Yeah. That's remarkable. Scott, I want to thank you for being with us today and all of our listeners, because the real question here today is how will you be a difference maker? How are you a difference maker? Is it some of the same things that Scott is doing, or maybe something you want to do differently? We want to invite you to be a part of the conversation about how you are a difference maker or how people are a difference maker in your life. Remember, you have the ability to be a difference maker for others, and others need you. We all impact people on a daily basis. Why not be the difference maker in the lives of others?